Okay, so today I wanted to talk, what's on my mind, I guess, is this morning I read a little bit about the second political debate in the country that was last night with the Republicans, and it was so interesting to me, just the whole frame of how they approached how they are going to run this country if they get elected. Really, the transcript that I read, the whole tenor of what they were talking about was how they have to make this world safe. You know, that the whole frame was how dangerous everything is, which is so curious to me, in contrast to, and they spent a lot of time talking about the deal with Iran to get the nuclear weapons decreased. And many of them said, if that goes through, the world will end. I mean, you know, they talk like that will be the end of everything. It was so curious. And I've read that proposal that went through now, and there's many checks and balances, and it's all about decreasing the stockpile of nuclear weapons. Seems like a pretty reasonable thing to me, and if they don't follow it, there are many sanctions that will happen, economic sanctions, which, you know, they certainly don't want. I remember when they started negotiating this, and then it kind of, they got to a settlement of it. There were pictures of the people in Iran dancing in the streets because now they would be able to get, supplies and services that they weren't getting because of the economic sanctions. So it was just so interesting to me to see that frame of mind that feels so worried and scared about everything and is so cut off and distant from certain people, instead of how we think about it in the Buddhist worldview, that we're so all in it together and so dependent on one another, which is to me how President Obama is kind of viewing things, that let's get a dialogue going, let's see how we can support and make this world kinder and safer through that mechanism, instead of the mechanism of force and war and distance. And there was only one person on the panel that spoke up and said, how many times do we have to go through this? When has this worked when you go to war? When has this worked? And, it sounded so logical to me. And the sad part about it was, after he finished talking, the audience hardly clapped. There was hardly any support for that. When the ones that were saying, we will stop them, they will never be able to take advantage of us, we will show them how strong we are, we will get more military and more guns and more this and that. And the audience kind of went, bonkers with that, clapping and very supportive. So it's just so interesting to me to see how, just by thinking about living beings as separate and distant, and I'm cut off from them, how then that evokes and brings up how then you're going to relate to other beings, living beings, versus, so much of what we practice and think about in Buddhism is how we are all the same. We all just want happiness. No one wants to suffer. And if we can open our hearts to that and step into and be close to those around us, that there's something very powerful about that, that's the basis of this compassion that we have for one another. And many, many positive things can happen, like we've seen with, many world leaders that have done that, Mother Teresa, Gandhi, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, how that is much more powerful than any warfare, any gun would ever be. And so, what can we do? Well, today, whoever we are amongst and whatever rises in our minds to think about decreasing the distance that we feel when we're around others, and step in instead of stepping away and highlighting that distance. And if we do that then from our own side, then we are going to make a change and make a difference in all those around us. And that's going to resonate in the world. That's what we can do. And so let's make that our practice today. And make this world a kinder, gentler, safer place using that method.